begin my final contribution on this debate by going back to the very beginning. How did this all start? Well, we've heard during the course of this debate that one of the National Party members of Parliament approached her local mayor and said there are major concerns with ECAN within central government, and you could start the ball rolling by writing to the mayoral forum. So Joe Goodhue approached Janie Adair to write to the mayoral forum saying there were major concerns about the operation of ECAN. The mayors then decided, on the assumption that they weren't just mayors but they were the local authority, to take the matter further. And that's how the sorry saga has begun, actually. My message to the public as a result of this debate and what has happened in the last 24 hours is don't just look at Auckland anymore. Don't just look at Auckland and say be very afraid of your democratic rights. Now you can look at Canterbury as well and be very wary, because it could be coming to a city near you soon. We have lost all our democratic rights in terms of voting for our regional council. The minister, with a shoddy little bill, and I say that with the greatest respect to the officials, who I guess had no other option but to write it, but if they were given a decent amount of time and guidance, perhaps it could have been a bit tidier, but it's a shoddy little bill given to us in draft form half an hour before it was publicly announced as being introduced into the House yesterday afternoon at 5:30, debated until 10 with just an hour and a half for the dinner break, and then begun again at 9 o'clock this morning, and soon the debate will be concluded. Well, Mr Speaker, what is urgent about this? What is not only urgent but so urgent that this Parliament considers it okay for not a single submission to be called for and not a single submission to be heard? People in Canterbury are really outraged. Some people would have actually come along to a select committee and said, good move, Minister, get rid of ECAN. But they can't. Others would have come along and said, with a more considered opinion in my view, that they didn't agree with this as the way forward for our regional management in Canterbury. But neither of those perspectives, nor any in between, have had an opportunity to be heard, because the Minister unilaterally decided that this had such a high priority to be passed under urgency that not a single submission would be called for. Well, I think that's an outrage. We have done our best through the first and second reading, through the committee stages, and now through the third reading, to try and put the facts of the situation on the table. I mentioned in the dying stages of the committee stage of the House about the water plan excuse that the Minister has constantly raised. He's been going on and on and on about the fact that there is no water plan. I said then that not only did we have the Canterbury Water Management Plan, and hadn't he noticed it because it's actually in the bill, but we also have the Natural Resources Regional Plan, which members of Parliament like Amy Adams, Jackie Deans, Joe Goodhue and Nicky Wagner would do well to familiarise themselves with, because they are attacking the Council on the basis of misinformation, and that's not a good basis for debate. It's okay when you're trying to score cheap political points, I guess, to make things up and not tell the complete truth. But when you're talking about disestablishing a regional council, then it should be done on the basis of facts and truth and honesty and open debate. Environment Canterbury notified their proposed Natural Resources Regional Plan in 2004. 2004 that was notified. The plan is operating. It doesn't have the full legal force under the Resource Management Act, but because of various things such as the objectives, the submissions and the hearings, the decisions, the appeals, all have to go through a process before it can become operative. But the objectives, the policies, the methods, the rules of the Natural Resources Regional Plan have continued from that time, 2004, to guide the decisions on the resource consent applications. So for the Minister to say something that is completely factually untrue, because we have two plans, one specifically developed because of the huge amount of tension around Canterbury and water, the Canterbury Water Management Strategy and the Natural Resources Regional Plan, the Minister's just wrong. And I hope that he takes the opportunity to say he's sorry to the people of Canterbury, but particularly to the staff and the councillors who have been working on those plans for many years. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that I'd want to just shine again a brief opportunity for some factual input is the comparison that the National Party were making. I noticed they stopped yesterday, but the comparison they were making between the process that this bill is going through and the process that the Labour Alliance government went through in May 2000. And that was in relation to the Rodney District Council. The first difference is this. The Rodney District Council voted unanimously to ask the Minister to intervene and appoint a Commissioner. Unanimous decision of the Council, no decision from Environment Canterbury. Agreed that they should write to the Minister and ask for her intervention, no such request from Environment Canterbury, and said a Commissioner should be appointed, no such recommendation from Environment Canterbury. So it started from a completely different basis, and the Minister made sure, the Honourable Sandra Lee, made sure that the people in Rodney were involved in looking at the options, were involved in deciding what the problem was. Let's agree on the problem and then let's look at some options for solutions. And they agreed on the solution. The Minister then made sure that the role of the Commissioner was not to take over the Council, as it is in this case, but to ensure that the relationships were mended, that they had systems and infrastructure in place to deliver efficiently, and then the Commissioner could walk away and leave an elected council once again to take over. And that happened in about a year. The Minister even ensured that the Rodney District had their elections early, rather than having to wait till October. There is no such commitment to a return to democracy in this legislation. In fact, one of my colleagues said we should have a bet. Who's going to get the vote back first, Fiji or Canterbury? Who's going to get a democratic vote again first? Will it be entitlement in Fiji or will it be in Canterbury for our regional council? It could be Fiji. Mr. Speaker, the other factual point that I want to make is in relation to what the Creech review actually said. This has been the cause of some frustration for members on this side of the House, because the National Party insisted on misrepresenting Wyatt Creech and the recommendations, and I want to just put on the record what the Creech report said in relation to the negative perception of ECAN. There's no debate that there's a negative perception. They said almost all external parties interviewed had a negative perception of ECAN's governance. They only interviewed 20 parties in the whole of Canterbury, and it was a very narrow list. They said that they had heard the councillors were polarised and they were dysfunctional, that there was insufficient leadership, that they were too busy protecting individual party perspectives and failing to pay enough attention to the region. The Creech report said our investigation did not bear this out. They had heard the stories, they'd heard the rumours, they've heard them repeated again from the National Party, repeating stuff about ECAN that is just not true. This is what the Honourable Wyatt Creech said in his report. Our investigation did not bear this out. They said the review found that while the process for debating strongly opposing views has been marred by poor behaviour and reflects past grievances in some cases, well, that isn't unusual. Not good, but not unusual. The governance of ECAN is functional and enables it to meet its statutory obligations. There is no need for this disemboweling of ECAN. There is no need for us in Canterbury to have our democratic right to vote taken away from us, and there is no need for this legislation to proceed.